Advent Candle 1 stands for hope, and specifically, the Israelites' hope that the promised Messiah would come. They had been waiting for the Messiah for centuries, wondering what he would look like and what he would do when he arrived. When Jesus was born, that hope was finally fulfilled. A prophet like you, Deuteronomy 18:15, had come. How Jesus fit the prophecies the Israelites had been reading for centuries would become the critical conflict of his ministry, whether he fulfilled them and whether people had been reading them correctly. Candle 1 is the prophet's candle, or the prophecy candle, because multiple Old Testament prophets had told people about the Messiah's coming for a long time. Alfred Edersheim figured that 456 Old Testament passages reference the Messiah. Most scholars conservatively estimate that there are over 300 messianic prophecies in the Old Testament, some going back to Genesis. The prophecies gave specific details about the Messiah, details like, he would be born to a virgin mother, Isaiah 7:14. He would be born in Bethlehem, Micah 5:2. He would spend time in Egypt, Hosea 11:1. He would come from the house, i.e., the family line, of David, Ezekiel 37:24. He would start his ministry in Galilee, Isaiah 9:1-2. He would be the figure that Daniel referred to as the Son of Man, Daniel 7:13-14. He would teach hidden things, things from of old, Psalm 78:1-2. He would be holy, a rock that would make people stumble and fall because they didn't believe in him, Isaiah 8:14. He would be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace, Isaiah 9:6. God would call him My Son, 2 Samuel 7:14, Psalm 2:1-9. He would gather the Israelites back together, Isaiah 11:12. The fact that the prophecies described God calling the Messiah his son, and also that he would be called Mighty God, became especially important. To be God's son and called God himself would mean that the Messiah wasn't just a new prophet like Elijah or an ordained warrior like David. The Messiah would be a divine figure. Since falsely claiming to be God was blasphemy, anyone claiming to be the Messiah had pretty big shoes to fill. As a nation, Israel began as a collection of slaves who had just gotten out of bondage. God's covenant with Israel on Mount Sinai started by emphasizing that he was the one who had freed them, Exodus 21-2. Hope in coming freedom continued to be important to Israel throughout the centuries. Judges like Gideon freed Israel from invaders who had taken over their land. Prophets like Jeremiah told Israelites in exile that their sin had caused people to invade and capture them, but to hope in the future when God would bring them back home. The prophecies about the Messiah affirmed that, like Moses, David, and other important figures, he would be an instrument of God's salvation. God would send the Messiah to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives, and release from darkness for the prisoners, Isaiah 61:1. Since Israel was controlled by the Roman Empire when Jesus was born, many people expected the Messiah to be a political savior. Like Judas Maccabeus fighting against the Seleucid Empire, they expected the Messiah to raise an army and kick out the foreign invaders. Multiple prophecies described the Messiah as a king, which was taken to mean that he would rule Israel after he had helped it achieve independence. This explains why King Herod was concerned when the three wise men said the Messiah had been born and tried to have Jesus killed. Jesus was the Messiah, but not the one that people expected. He came as a suffering Savior to die as the ultimate Passover lamb, Exodus 12:1-51, a sacrifice for people's sins. He was rejected by those he had come to rescue, Isaiah 53:3, and killed by them. As Isaiah 53:7 predicted, he was led like a lamb being led to the butcher,